accurate, and notice the word accurate, accurate item traits will help. Inaccurate do not. You want your item traits to be accurate. And accurate means also to format them correctly, please. Because I get that, mice didn't publish, why? And I look at the XML file. Well, let's try removing the dash from the ISBN. And the year needs to be 4 numbers, not 2 numbers. So it's not 08, it's not 70, it's 1970, it's 2008. So you need to have your item traits. That's for Bonanza search placement. Now this is where everyone gets confused. The item traits, if they line up with Google attributes, Bonanza maps them to the appropriate Google attribute. And they show up in the file. Now guys, I am here to tell you, I have worked with Google product and Google base since the day they opened. I work on eBay files. Matter of fact, I set up so many eBay sellers when we did our own feed, it's just, the list is endless. And I still have to look at their files because sellers can't figure out why they're not showing up, so we can look on the back side. The eBay file is horrible. It's awful. There is no branding for the seller. That seller, your user ID, if you sell on that venue, your user ID is not seen in the file. The author of all of your items is eBay. And that's what's in the file. There is no brand. Your ISBNs don't show up. There's nothing there but the 6 that are required. Period. It's horrible. The file is horrendous. And a matter of fact, with the change that Google's getting ready to make, I'm still not seeing those changes in the file at all. The ISBNs are still not being mapped out. We're still not seeing a brand. We're still not seeing an MPN or a UPC. From day one, the first time that I noticed that Bonanza fed to Google base, and I went, oh, you've got to be kidding. And I opened up and I went, sweet. This is wonderful. Sweet. This thing is clean. If I run it through a validator, there are no errors. The only time that there are errors are user errors. They're not site errors. They've always been user errors, not site errors. The file produces extremely high. I really wish that we could still see our impressions and our statistics so that you could see exactly whenever you upload a file where your impressions and your click-throughs are coming from and which items, because it performs at a very high level. If I take my stuff out of my booth and I use all of Bonanza's file formatting in my own file and upload it to my own Google Merchant account and use Google Hosted, every single time, without fail, when I do comparisons between Bonanza's setup and what eBay uses, Bonanza will outperform it 3-to-1 every single time. Category, all of the every single time without fail. So we'll hear everybody, oh, you've got to change to Google's product type taxonomy. That's a bunch of baloney. You do not have to change to Google's product taxonomy. Why in the world would you want to go to that extra work? The Bonanza category system works very well. Stay with what works. It performs at a high level. And changing to a Google product taxonomy is going to do 2 things. Number one, it's going to eliminate you in part of the Bonanza site search because sometimes it takes that stuff out. You want to leave that taxonomy in. It works well. Your additional attributes, if need them, if you need additional attributes, instead of just sticking something in there that you're not sure what's going to work, go to the batch editor. Go to Search Optimize and see what attributes are shown, and you only add them if they're needed. More is not necessarily better. Sometimes the basics are what perform better. So more doesn't necessarily go and do better. How many of y'all listened to the podcast a couple of times ago when we talked about Andy's creation? We're there? Okay. For those of you who did not attend that podcast, Andy's creation on eBay, I took her on as a project. And she was a little apprehensive, Judy doesn't know what she's talking about, and this is a lot of work, and blah, blah, blah. But I said, come on, we're going to do this. So I've worked with her since January. Now she sent me her file, and when I opened it up, I went, We're wondering why we're not getting any traffic. There were some of her listings that she had added as many as 50 additional Google attributes. 50. Tell me what Google's going to pick whenever some of these only allow 1. Some of them 10 is the limit. So what is it Google product is going to index? So I sent her back and I said, I hope that you're work brittle because you have a lot of work to do. Your booth is a mess. It's no wonder that you have no traffic. So we went through and she's like, are you sure? Clean this up. It's got to go. You've got to clean this up. So we took 10 of her listings, we pulled them out of her booth, I set her up a Google hosted, we cleaned up the file, I uploaded it, I said, now I want you to watch what happens. And she emails me in 3 days and went, did you see how many hits? Yes, I did. Watch when the clicks start coming. So the clicks started hitting. I said, now I want you to take this example information and I want you to apply it to your live listings on Bonanza. And I want you to do the same thing. Clean out the garbage. Get rid of it. Do things like lose the 900-mile-long description that the reader has to scroll down. Lose all the links that take the buyer away from your listing page. Build a listing in your booth that gives accolades to the artist, to your booth policies. Use the booth policy page, but lose all of this because the reader gets bored, the links direct them away from your listing page, and you can make no use of the gallery at the bottom that is so beautifully displayed of similar items. They can't see it. It's in the back 40. So we cleaned all of that up, and after I finally talked her in to changing some of her more expensive listings, a couple of weeks after she changed them, she started selling those expensive paintings because they could be found and they came in from the Google product search. If you take care of your accurate item traits and adding only the necessary attributes, the result is going to be increased chances of your item being served up, which is what you're after. That's what you're after. You want a chance for your item to be seen when somebody types in a search query. You want it to be served up. All right, what attributes are automatically mapped by Bonanza for me? They have to do the required 6. This is what has to go up. They have to send the title. The condition is required. The default is used. If you sell new product, then you need to go in and change that to new. They also send the description, the ID, the link to the item, and the price. Those are what is required. However, there is a lot more that Bonanza tells the buyers about your product. They also tell them the image link. It's not required, but they send it. They also put in a reviews URL, which is becoming much more important. The reviews is a big deal now. It's a huge deal, and it's becoming increasingly more important. And trust me, you really want Bill to have put in this review link as opposed to having some of the ones that are showing up there now, like reseller ratings, that everybody is all up in arms about because the resale ratings is not all that cool, and they've accidentally had some problems. So there are reviews that are not supposed to be attached that are showing up. It's been a big deal. So it's really important that he has put a review link in our file for us. He also does the product type. Product type is the category that it goes in. It's a category. They just call it product type. They send the quantity. They send the tax. Don't everybody freak out. It's not because that we're charging tax. They just send that information to Google so Google knows where you're located and that there's not tax assigned to it. They also send the price type so that Google knows whether it is a fixed price or whether you're willing to negotiate. And it tells that to the buyers. They also send the shipping, and the weight attribute will show up if you have calculated shipping configured. If you don't have calculated shipping, the weight doesn't show up. It's not a factor. It's really no big deal. If you have Google checkout, payment notes show up. And for the love of Pete, do not add payment notes on your own. If you add payment notes on your own, that item won't show up in Google. It'll be line item disapproved, so don't put in Google Notes. It also will tell your buyers whether you allow pickup or not, whether you want customers to come to your facility and pick up the item. Can I add more attributes? Sure, but you need to be careful because more is not enough. And this is where I see problems all of the time. Some of the attributes you can add 1. Some of the attributes you can add up to 10. And how do you know? Trial and error right now. ORM has promised faithfully that they will include in the attribute list shortly how many times that each attribute can be added, because right now it's like we just know that you can only put 10 of this and only 1 of this. It's just because we've done it, we know. And it's very confusing for newcomers to come in and try to put in 15 feature, and then they're like, it's not showing up. Well, that's because you have 15 feature. You have to get that back to 10. And then it'll show up. You can use feature up to 10 times. You can use color up to 10 times. You can use size up to 10 times. You can use made in once. And you have to use the ISO country code. If you put in made in the USA or Cambodia and you spell it out, it isn't happening. It's not going to go up. Shipping can only be used once. Cher's Boutique, and I ran into this. How long ago did we run into that? It's been, she emails me, she goes, something happened, my booth like disappeared. So well, send me your file. And I'm looking at it and I went, Cher, let's try taking out the additional shipping, because you can't do that. The shipping attribute is already supplied by Bonanza. So if you add it on your own, that means that the item will be line item disapproved and it won't show up. Line item disapproval doesn't mean that your whole feed's down. It means that one item didn't comply. There's something back behind in the file that is in non-compliance that's not right. It can be an encoding error. It can be an attribute problem. It doesn't mean that you have a policy violation. There's something wrong in the file for that one item. And generally speaking, it's one of these. Adventuresome just emailed me right before we came. I saw him on the board and I said, please send me your file. Let me take a really quick look. I opened it up and I said, you have too many feature, take them out. Barnes Antique. How do you say that? Barnes Teak. She just had the same problem. I said, Paula, you can't use feature and genre that many times. You have to use it 10 times. You have 20 and 25. You've got to decide what is the most important and kill the rest of them. All right, what do I do to rank higher in Google Organic?